Life happened, growth happened, healing happened, and somewhere along the way, so did purpose. This isn't just a comeback, this is evolution. My name is Ani Long, and welcome back to Hey Girl, I See You, Season 2. We're talking faith, growth, leadership, healing, boundaries, purpose, and the real life lessons that shape who we become. No filters, no pretending, just real conversations, real growth, and real impact. So grab your coffee, your journal, or just a quiet moment for yourself. Because trust me, sis, I see you. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Hey Girl I See You podcast. It's your girl, Coach Ani here, and as always, we have another good one for you today. Today's episode, baby, this one might sting a little because if you're growing, if you're healing, if you're becoming the woman God created you to be, you're eventually going to realize something that isn't easy to accept. Everybody can't go into your next season with you. And before you start feeling guilty, let me tell you why. One thing nobody really talks about enough is this: growth changes relationships. Not because you've become arrogant, not because you've forgotten where you came from, but because growth changes what you value. The conversations that once entertained you may no longer interest you. The places you once felt comfortable may no longer feel like home. The habits you once accepted may no longer align with the woman you're becoming. And that's okay. Growth is supposed to change you. If you're still thinking the same, choosing the same, tolerating the same 5 years later, did you really grow? Sometimes people get uncomfortable when you change because your growth reminds them that they're standing still. And instead of celebrating your growth, they may criticize it. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because your growth disrupts the version of you they became comfortable with, the version that they had easy access to, or the version that lacked boundaries. Hey girl, stop apologizing for becoming healthier. Healthy people make different decisions. And that's what brings me to my next point. Some people were assigned to a chapter, not the whole book. Somebody needed to hear that today, so let me say that again. Some people were assigned to a chapter, not the whole book. Whew. That's probably one of the hardest lessons I had to learn. Because when you genuinely love people, your first instinct is to take everybody with you, right? But life doesn't always work that way. Sometimes we confuse history with assignment. Just because someone has been in your life for a long time doesn't automatically mean they're supposed to be in every season of your life. Some people were there to encourage you when you needed encouragement. Some were there to teach you a lesson. Some were there to help you survive. Some were there so you could help them. But every relationship isn't designed to last forever. And that doesn't make the relationship a failure. Sometimes it simply means its purpose has been fulfilled. I think one of the biggest mistakes we make is trying to force permanent relationships out of temporary assignments. We keep trying to revive connections that have naturally run their course. We keep trying to hold on to people who have already let go. We keep trying to make old relationships fit into new seasons. And in the process, we become exhausted. Hey girl, everybody doesn't have the capacity to celebrate the version of you that's emerging. Some people only knew the you who doubted herself, the you who apologized for everything, the you who settled, the you who stayed quiet, the you who accepted less than you deserved. But when you start healing, when you start setting boundaries, when you start saying no without guilt, some relationships begin to shift. Not because you've become difficult, but because you've become different. Here's something I want you to think about. If every person from your past could comfortably walk into your future, did you really grow? Growth changes assets. Growth changes conversations. Growth changes expectation. Growth changes priorities. And sometimes growth changes your circle. Now, hear me clearly. This isn't permission to treat people poorly. This isn't about acting like you're better than anybody else. And it definitely isn't about cutting people off every time they disappoint you. It's about recognizing that not every relationship is meant to go the distance. Some people were assigned to help write one chapter of your story, but they were never meant to hold the pen for the rest of the book. Hey girl, be grateful for the people who walk with you. Pray for the people you had to release. And don't feel guilty for embracing the season God is leading you into. Because sometimes the next chapter of your life requires room for the people who are assigned to meet the woman you're becoming, not the woman you used to be. And that leads me to something we don't talk about nearly enough. Outgrowing people doesn't make you a bad person. And honestly, outgrowing relationship doesn't automatically make you disloyal or mean. I know that's a hard one because somewhere along the way, a lot of us were taught that loyalty means holding on, no matter how unhealthy the relationship becomes, no matter how much we've changed, no matter how much it costs us emotionally. But that's not loyalty. Sometimes that's fear. Fear of hurting someone's feelings, fear of disappointing people, fear of being misunderstood, fear of looking like the bad person. So instead of making healthy decisions, we keep carrying unhealthy relationships because guilt felt easier than change. Hey girl, outgrowing someone doesn't mean you stop loving them. You don't necessarily need to explain every possible outcomes. Sometimes some friendships become memory, some become acquaintances, some become prayer partners from a distance, and some simply become part of your testimony. One of the biggest lies we tell ourselves is if I love them enough, I'll stay. But sometimes love says, I'll always wish you well. I just can't stay where I'm no longer healthy. That's maturity, sis. And can I say something that may help somebody today? You can love people and still recognize they no longer have access to every part of your life. Those two things can exist at the same time because boundaries don't cancel love, they protect peace. I've learned that not everyone will celebrate the healed version of you. Some people were more comfortable with the version of you who never said no. The version who overextended herself, the version who accepted crumbs, the version who always made herself available. But when healing changes your standards, people notice, and not everybody will like it. Hey girl, don't confuse someone's discomfort with your disobedience. Just because someone is uncomfortable with your growth doesn't mean you're growing in the wrong direction. Sometimes your growth exposes what others were benefiting from, and that's not your burden to carry. Here's what I've learned: growth doesn't always require an argument. Sometimes it simply requires distance. No announcement, no social media post, no dramatic exit, just quiet wisdom. Give yourself permission to appreciate what a relationship was without forcing it to become what it no longer is. Some people were blessings, some were lessons, some were both. And every single one helps shape the woman you're becoming. Which brings me to something we all struggle with. Stop forcing connections. Sometimes we hold on to people because of history, even when the connection no longer feels healthy. Can I ask you something? How many relationships are you maintaining simply because they existed for a long time? Not because they bring you peace, not because they're healthy, not because they're mutual, but simply because they've always been there. Sometimes we confuse familiarity with purpose. Just because someone has been around for years doesn't automatically mean they're supposed to remain in the same place in your life. Sometimes we spend so much energy trying to keep a connection alive that we don't realize we're the only one doing the work. We're always the one calling, always the one checking in, always apologizing, always fixing, always reaching out, always making excuses. And after a while, you have to ask yourself, is this relationship being maintained by two people or just me? Hey girl, healthy relationships don't require one person to carry all the weight. They require effort from both sides. Mutual respect, mutual care, mutual investment. If you're constantly fighting to keep a connection alive while the other person seems comfortable letting it fade, stop chasing. Not because you're giving up on people, but because relationships aren't meant to be one-sided. One of the hardest truths I've had to accept is this: you cannot force people to communicate. You cannot force people to support you. You cannot force people to celebrate you. You cannot force people to understand your heart. And you certainly cannot force people to value what they refuse to appreciate. Sometimes we exhaust ourselves trying to convince people to become who we need them to be instead of accepting who they've already shown us they are. That realization hurts, but it also brings freedom because once you stop trying to change people, you can finally focus on changing what you allow. Sis, stop begging for consistency. Stop chasing reciprocity. Stop forcing conversation that feel one-sided. Stop trying to earn your seat at tables where you've never been welcome. Your energy is too valuable to spend trying to convince people of your worth. And hear me when I say this: walking away from a forced connection doesn't always mean there's anger. Sometimes it simply means there's acceptance. Acceptance that you've grown, acceptance that they've changed, acceptance that the relationship has served its purpose, and acceptance that it's okay to let it become what it naturally became. I've learned that peace often begins where pressure ends. When you stop forcing, you stop performing, you stop proving, you stop pretending, and you start living. Sis, the relationships that are meant for your next season won't require you to shrink yourself, won't require you to beg for attention or constantly question where you stand. The right people won't make you earn what you freely give. Respect, honesty, support, and grace. Maybe today, instead of asking, why didn't they stay? Ask yourself, why am I fighting so hard to keep someone who has already let go? Sometimes that answer is the beginning of your freedom. And that brings me to my final thought. Make peace with change. Not every relationship is meant to last forever. Some people simply helped shape part of your journey. Can I leave you with something? Life is made up of seasons, and just like seasons change, people do too. Some relationships are meant to last a lifetime, some are meant to prepare you for your next chapter. Neither one is more valuable than the other. They simply have different assignments. One of the greatest gifts you can give yourself is permission to stop fighting what has naturally changed. Not every friendship will look the same 10 years later. Not every coworker becomes a lifelong friend. Not every mentor stays forever. Not every relationship survives every season. And sis, that's okay. Hey girl, sometimes we spend so much time grieving who left that we overlook who's arriving. God has a way of making room for the people assigned to your next season. But if your hands are full trying to hold on to what He's already released, how will you receive what's next? I know change can be uncomfortable, especially when it involves people you genuinely love. But change isn't always loss. Sometimes change is protection. Sometimes change is preparation. And sometimes change is God's way of creating space for something you've been praying for. I've learned that maturity isn't measured by how many people you keep around you. It's measured by how peacefully you can let go when it's time, without bitterness, without revenge, without feeling like you have to prove a point, just with peace. So, sis, be thankful for the people who celebrated you. Learn from the people who challenged you. Pray for the people you've had to release, and never regret the relationships that helped shape who you are today. Every person served a purpose, even the ones who hurt you, because sometimes they taught what you'll never accept again. And here's something I want you to carry into your next season. Stop looking at every ending as failure. Some endings have graduations. You've learned the lesson. You've grown. You've healed. Now it's time to keep moving. So, sis, don't be afraid of new season. Don't be afraid of new people. Don't be afraid of new opportunities. And don't be afraid to become someone that people from your past no longer recognize. Growth is supposed to change you. Healing is supposed to change you. Purpose is supposed to change you. And if you're listening today while grieving a friendship, a relationship, or even a version of yourself you've had to leave behind, I want you to know something. God isn't just closing doors, He's preparing new ones. Trust Him enough to walk through them. My favorite scripture, Proverbs 3, verses 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not into thy own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. In closing, I'll leave you with this. Maybe maturity is learning how to let go with love instead of resentment. Because holding on to resentment keeps you connected to a season God has already called you out of. But letting go with love, that's freedom, sis. That doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you pretend you weren't hurt. It simply means you refuse to let yesterday keep stealing your tomorrow. Hey girl, some people were a part of your story. Take the lesson, keep the memories, release the weight, and keep becoming. Thank y'all so much for spending time with me again today. If this episode encouraged you, challenged you, or reminded you that growth sometimes requires change, then make sure to share it with somebody who may need this reminder today. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, and share on Apple Music, Amazon Music, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you enjoy your podcast. New episodes premiere every Thursday at 6:30 p.m. and I can't wait to meet you right back here next week. And always remember, hey girl, I see you.